All right, fantasy fans, welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving into something incredibly dark and honestly totally fascinating. If you're a fan of those grim cautionary tales with just absolutely meticulous world building, you are going to be captivated by this. We're looking at the bleak, methodical universe of the Cosmic Creed, and we're going to unravel the tragic, cosmic mistake that they call existence. Wow, just listen to that quote for a second. To breathe is to borrow, and to die is to finally be honest. That right there, that perfectly captures the cosmic creed of negation. It strips away all your foolish hopes right from the very start. We're not talking about a generic fantasy monster here. This is a deeply cynical philosophy that preaches the absolute vanity of mortal striving. It's the blueprint for the systematic, inevitable end of a vibrant world. Okay, let's start with part one, the cosmic mistake. So, to really get the sheer scale of this event, we've got to talk about the arrival of the great star of chaos and the origin of the dragon spirit. This malicious presence of pure negation was actually reborn from the oxidized lead of a former nature spirit. Imagine that for a second. The very essence of nature dies, calcifies into a heavy metal shell, and then awakens with one single goal: to correct this messy, chaotic world. And this brings us to what's known as the parable of the living mistake. You see, as mortals, we look at the living friction of the world, the growth, the pain, the triumphs, as a masterpiece to be preserved, right? Well, the dragon spirit, it literally sees all of that as a glitch. To the spirit, life is just a flawed structural error that's temporarily interrupting the perfect, absolute emptiness of the void. Which leads us nicely into our next chapter, Echoes of the Void. To truly grasp the dread of this creed, I want you to put yourself in the shoes of a terrified villager trapped inside Lead City. Picture it. You're cowering in the pitch dark, and there's this frequency of absolute vacancy just broadcasting straight from the heavens into your mind. Every single sound you try to make in that suffocating fog suddenly feels like completely wasted effort. And that perfectly illustrates the parable of the hollow echo. The spirit of negation openly mocked those desperate villagers' prayers. It called them hollow echoes in a throat destined for dust. Brutal, right? It's teaching them the first grim tenet of the creed. Every spoken word is merely delaying the everlasting quiet. Let's move on to section 3, the drained hearth. So, as this negative energy pulsed downwards, the very concept of home was just completely drained away. Think about that freezing Lead City villager again. It's a terrifying progression. You huddle together for warmth as an unnatural cold seeps deep into your bones. Then the horrifying realization hits you. This warmth isn't a victory. It's just temporary theft from the void. Eventually, your entire will to survive just dissolves. What's so hauntingly effective about the star's cold, heavy light is that it didn't even bother to physically burn their skin. Because, a burn implies friction, and friction implies life. Nope. Instead, the light simply froze them from the inside out, basically proving that the chaotic struggle of life was a debt that could only be settled by returning to zero. And that sets the stage for our fourth section, the final reckoning. Let's dive into the parable of the borrowed debt. I love how this brilliantly frames existence as a literal financial liability. Things like breathing, the chaotic struggle of surviving, building grand stone cities or forests. To mortals, those are huge achievements. But to the dragon spirit, those are massive debts. The required repayment is everlasting quiet and inorganic calm. It's a final reckoning proving that physical effort can never, ever repay the debt of existence. Here we see the parable of the leaden tongue put into practice. By lifting the heavy fog and speaking the cosmic creed directly into the dying minds of the villagers, the spirits systematically stripped away their burden of striving. It actually replaced the sharp pain of their loss with a cynical, cold relief, the realization that absolutely nothing they had built had any inherent right to exist in the first place. Finally, we arrive at section 5, the lead horizon. This is it, the total unraveling of the world. It started with the arrival of the great star. Then, the spirit eagerly traded its own living flesh for the void, exhaling absolute zero one last devastating time. That profound breath literally tore the fabric of local reality itself, leaving behind nothing but a perfectly flat plain of dust. The messy, vibrant world was flattened. Forever. The great dissolution was complete. The lead horizon is the only landscape that never lied. Because, according to the creed, life, friction, striving, those were all lies. Now leaving only absolute dust where the cosmic creed of negation stands as the sole, final law, the world has finally been corrected into a state of truth. So, as we wrap up this incredibly dark explainer, I want to leave you with a final, chilling thought to ponder. Now that the structural error of this messy world has been corrected in the lore, if that cold, heavy light ever approached your doorstep, would you keep up your chaotic struggle, or would you finally give in and embrace the everlasting quiet? It's a terrifying question from a beautifully constructed piece of world building for sure. Thanks so much for joining me for this deep dive, and remember, sometimes the darkest lore gives us the most fascinating perspectives.